It's 8:17 on a Wednesday morning. You're sitting in your car outside an office you've never been inside before. The interview starts in 12 minutes. Your resume is open on your phone. The company looks good. The salary is good. The benefits are good. And 5 years ago, you would have done almost anything to get this job. You would have rehearsed every answer, smiled through every awkward question, said yes to the weekend travel, said yes to the longer commute, said yes to the manager, said yes to almost everything. But today, you're sitting there thinking about something completely different. Do I actually want this? That question feels strange, because for most of your working life, interviews were never really about whether you wanted the job. They were about whether the company wanted you. You needed the paycheck. You needed the health insurance. You needed the stability. You needed the job to work. Now something has changed. You don't need this one. And that changes the entire interview. You walk inside. The receptionist asks you to wait. You sit down. A few minutes later, the hiring manager walks out and shakes your hand. You follow him into a conference room. He starts explaining the position. Good salary, strong growth potential, fast-paced environment, occasional travel, long hours during busy periods. You listen carefully. Then he says something that catches your attention. Most people here are expected to be available after hours. You pause. 5 years ago, you would have nodded. Today, you ask, how often? He gives you an answer. You do the math in your head. 4 evenings a week, several weekends a year, more responsibility, more stress, for more money. And suddenly the salary doesn't look as impressive. Not because the number changed, because your definition of expensive changed. You used to think an expensive job was one that paid too little. Now you realize an expensive job can also be one that costs too much of your life. That realization didn't happen overnight. It started years earlier. You were 26. Your checking account had $1,200 in it. Your student loan payment was due, your car needed new tires, rent had increased, and your company had just announced layoffs. You remember sitting at your kitchen table staring at your laptop. Your manager had sent an email saying the company was restructuring. You knew what that meant. People were going to lose their jobs. You couldn't sleep that night. Every possibility ran through your head. What if I'm next? How long could I survive? What if I can't find another job? What if I fall behind? You weren't afraid of losing your job. You were afraid of what losing your job would force you to do. That's an important difference. So the next morning, you make a decision. You are going to build enough financial distance that one employer can never have that much control over your life again. You don't know exactly how much money you need. You just know you need a buffer. You start with an emergency fund. $1,500, then $3,000, then $5,000. It feels painfully slow, but something psychologically changes. For the first time, an unexpected expense doesn't immediately become a crisis. Then you start investing, not aggressively, not with some secret strategy, just consistently. Every payday, money leaves your checking account before you can spend it. $200, then $300, then $400. Your lifestyle doesn't change much. Your investment account does. Years pass. Your emergency fund reaches 6 months of expenses. Your investments cross $50,000, then $100,000. You still go to work. You still complain about meetings. You still buy groceries. Nothing about your appearance tells anyone that you're becoming financially stronger. But underneath your ordinary life, something important is happening. Your dependence on your paycheck is shrinking. And then, your company has another bad year. Your manager calls you into his office. Your position isn't being eliminated, but your workload is increasing. Your hours are changing, your responsibilities are expanding, and the raise they're offering doesn't feel worth it. The old version of you would have accepted immediately. The new version of you asks, what happens if I say no? And for the first time, you realize you actually have an answer. Nothing catastrophic. You can leave. You have savings, you have investments, you have experience, You have time to find something else. So you say no. Your manager looks surprised. You walk back to your desk, and nothing happens. The building doesn't collapse. Nobody comes running after you. You simply return to your work. But something inside you has changed permanently. You have discovered the power of being able to walk away. That power grows over the next few years. Your portfolio reaches $200,000, then $300,000. Your expenses remain reasonable. Your lifestyle doesn't expand every time your income does. And slowly, your money begins creating something more valuable than a higher standard of living: negotiating power. You don't need every raise. You don't need every promotion. You don't need every bonus. You don't need to accept every offer. You can wait, and waiting becomes incredibly powerful. A recruiter contacts you about a new position. The salary is 20% higher. The title sounds impressive. You look at the details. The commute is 90 minutes each way. The job requires constant travel. The manager has a reputation for being difficult. You decline. The recruiter sounds surprised. You're turning down a 20% increase? You say yes, because you finally learned that salary is only one part of compensation. The rest is paid in time, stress, energy, sleep, relationships, health, and freedom. You don't want the highest paying job. You want the job that gives you the best life. That distinction becomes more important as your wealth grows. At 34, you have enough invested that your portfolio can fluctuate by more money in a month than your first annual salary. That doesn't mean you're invincible. Markets fall, expenses happen, life still surprises you. But the difference is that a bad month doesn't automatically become a bad year. You have margin, and margin changes your personality. You become calmer, not because nothing can go wrong, because you know that something can go wrong without destroying you. Then comes the interview, the one you're sitting outside right now. The manager explains the position, the salary is attractive, the company looks successful, but the job requires you to be available every night. You ask about flexibility. There isn't much. You ask about remote work. Not available. You ask about vacation. Limited. You look at the offer again, and you realize something. You don't need to convince yourself to take it. You can simply say no. So you do. You thank the manager, shake his hand, walk outside, get into your car, and sit there for a moment. No panic, no regret, no feeling that you've just destroyed your future. Just relief. Because you didn't reject the job because you were above it. You rejected it because your financial life finally gave you the ability to choose. And that is a completely different kind of wealth. Most people think financial freedom means never working again, but that's not necessarily what it feels like. Sometimes financial freedom looks like opening a job offer and asking, "Is this worth my time?" Not, "Will they hire me?" Not, "Can I survive if I say no?" Not, "What if this is my only opportunity?" Just, "Is this worth my time?" That question is a luxury, and you bought it slowly, with emergency savings, with investments, with controlled spending, with years of patience, with every raise you didn't immediately turn into a bigger lifestyle, with every unnecessary purchase you decided to skip, with every dollar you allowed to remain invested. Eventually, your money becomes a silent employee. It doesn't replace your career, it supports your ability to choose one. And then you notice something strange. Your attitude at work changes. You speak differently in meetings. You disagree when you disagree. You ask questions. You don't pretend to love bad ideas. You don't stay late just because everyone else is staying late. You don't answer every message immediately. Not because you stopped caring, because fear stopped managing your behavior. And people notice. Your boss notices. Your coworkers notice. But they don't know why. They think you're confident. They think you're experienced. They think you simply don't care about office politics. The truth is simpler. You can leave. That's it. You can leave. And knowing that changes everything. A year later, another company offers you a position. The salary is lower, but the hours are better. The commute is shorter. You'd have more time with your family. 5 years earlier, you would have rejected it immediately. Now, you consider it seriously because you're no longer maximizing income, you're maximizing freedom. You take the lower-paying job. Your friends don't understand. Someone asks why you would voluntarily make less money. You smile because the answer is difficult to explain. You aren't making less, you're buying more of something else. Time. And time is the one thing you can't invest in later. You can invest money, you can earn more money, you can recover from a financial mistake, but you can't go back and buy yesterday afternoon. So your definition of wealth changes again. Wealth isn't just the ability to buy expensive things, it's the ability to reject expensive things. A job that costs too much, a house that requires too much debt, a lifestyle that requires constant work, a relationship that drains you, an opportunity that isn't worth the sacrifice. You can say no. And then one morning, years after that first interview, you receive another email, another job offer. Higher salary, better title, bigger company, more prestige. You read the offer, then you close the laptop. You don't need to accept it. You don't need to reject it either. You can think, you can compare, you can wait, you can ask questions, you can negotiate, you can walk away. And you realize that this is what your money was building all along. Not a mansion, not a luxury car, not an impressive bank balance. A gap. A gap large enough that someone else's decision no longer determines what you do next. And that's when you finally understand financial security. It's not the moment you become rich, it's the moment you realize you can say, no thank you, and still be okay. Because the greatest financial freedom isn't the ability to buy any job you want, it's the ability to reject the ones you don't. And once you have that power, work changes, money changes, your time changes, and eventually, your entire life starts feeling like something you chose instead of something you were forced to accept.